Fisher needs to be higher, but I don't know where to put it. I'm exhausted. Zoro should be in C. No. Go and watch the video by the world-renowned YouTuber called Koroto's Mystery Shack. This one separates things like Oden and Roger separately, even though I would basically put them the same thing, right? So I'll talk about those things where it's relevant, but a lot of these I would basically put like neck and neck. Let's just go down the list, starting with Luffy. Luffy and Shanks. The hat. I'm not going to put it S+, right away. I think Luffy's story is extremely effective, and like the emotional weight of it obviously is insane. It resonates through the entire series, is beautiful in every sense of the word, but I don't think it hits the emotional highs that some of the later ones do. And I think much of that is just because we have so much investment into the characters. I think Luffy's one is like an easy A. I can definitely see people just putting it right at the top. It's the one that starts everything. It's the one that establishes, I mean, to be fair, it basically establishes Luffy's worldview on everything, right? We see Shanks doused in beer, and then Luffy basically goes after that as well, in Mocktown. He basically does the Shanks thing again. So I think there is an argument to be made that it's like the most important, because Luffy, but for me it's gonna be an A. He's gonna be an A. For reasons we'll talk about. Zoro. Zoro's one, self-plug. I made a whole video on Zoro. I'm gonna put it up somewhere. I made a whole long video on Zoro. And the more I think about Zoro's flashback, the more I'm like, damn. Damn. It was very, very, very big. You know? It was incredibly important. So, I don't know. Because, like, for a lot of the characters, the flashbacks sort of tell the story of who they are and how they became who they are. Right? For Zoro, it's the same thing, obviously, to an extent. But for Zoro, it is also this thing of why he pushes forward. I really, really like Zoro's flashback because of how meaningful it is. For Zoro specifically. And no one else. No one even knows what happened to Zoro. As far as I know. And this is something that, like, people debate a lot. Does the crew even know each other's stories? Right? Because, like, there's the big thing of Luffy never even heard Nami's story. Right? I'm pretty sure Zoro has never said anything. So, do people even know Kuina existed? Probably not. I think this might be blasphemous because I know a lot of people say that, like, Kuina is kind of an odd one. Like I said, I made a whole video about it. For me, it's also going to go A. I think for Zoro, it means everything. For a lot of characters, it means a lot. For Zoro, I think Zoro's flashback is everything. I think most of them don't know each other's backstories. Yes. 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 Also, talking about Zoro's backstory, I'm gonna keep referencing the video because it's very fresh on my mind. I talk a lot about it there. I have come to the conclusion that I do not want anyone perpetuating the idea that Kuina is alive. I think that would so severely undermine Zoro's journey that I think I would actually be angry. I would genuinely be angry if something turned out that Kuina was going to somewhere. I genuinely think that is one of those story beats that no matter what explanation Oda came up with, I would still be like, you shouldn't have, you know? Because I think for Zoro, Kuina's death is that moment of how fragile people are. She dies in a split second. With literally no fanfare, no nothing. One moment she's there, the next she's gone. And that's what works so beautifully for Zoro. And for Zoro moving forward, it's knowing that weight that he carries, and the fact that it all could be over any second, that I feel like it resonates really, really strongly with Luffy later on, right? Like in his fight with King, for example. With the whole seeing the Grim Reaper and stuff. I think for Zoro, that moment is incredibly important. And if that was undermined, then I'd be very, very sad. Would have been revealed in Wano. A lot of people are throwing around the idea that, like, Kuina might be a part of the God Knights, right? But like I said, no matter the explanation, no matter the hoops you'd have to jump through, even if it made perfect sense, like, even if it was the most genius piece of writing ever, I would still be like, but why? It was so beautiful, I don't want it to change. I don't think it's going to, but with how much people talk about it, I had to chime in. Alright, I forget this little dude's name. This little dude, I feel so bad. On my first watch through, I barely even noticed him. Because it's the little doggo that sees, like, the burning house. Chouchou, yeah. I barely noticed this little dude. I was so sad. And now I know his story. By the way, important note for me. I see people suffer. I'm like, damn, that's sad. I see animals suffer. That's when I get actually sad. Every single backstory involving an animal is so damaging. With people, it's kind of like, you know, with damn, that's sad. I think it's a helplessness thing, you know? Alright, I'm gonna put him B. Yeah, I saw like the burning house, and it's a little story. Like, in the grand scheme of things, it means nothing, right? It's comparatively very, very small. It's a good little story. A good little story. Buggy and Shanks. It's going S+ tier. It's going S+ tier. The story of Buggy and Shanks completely... I mean, we started with Buggy and Shanks in, I believe, Orangetown. I believe Orangetown is when we get the first flashback of Buggy. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure he eats the fruit, and Shanks is making fun of him. And I even remember in my first very, very bad videos, I was like, oh, I want to find out more, you know? And then we move on, and we get stuff like the Wano flashback, right? Where we get to see them actually be very, very good buddies. But still in the present day, we have that question of, but what's up with them? Why are they not friends now? What's up with this whole Shanks treats him like a, you know, like a little brother, but Buggy is constantly angry. What's the deal? And then freaking Oda drops the chapter, completely recontextualizing their entire relationship, and Buggy wasn't mad at him, he was disappointed. And at that moment, I was like, goddamn. Goddamn. Rewriting someone like Buggy on the fly, goddamn. That was beautiful, that was glorious. Buggy is one of my favorite characters now, because I feel like we don't get a lot of characters like him. It's not a character that has been, like, broken by the world. It is a character who believed in his friend so much, but his friend was like, but I don't want to do that. You know? I want to do other things. And he was like, but you have to. And if you're not going to, well then okay, I will. You know, it's like out of spite. But it's not even spite. Oh, I love their story so much. It's such a beautiful story. I'm very, very curious to see where it goes. I would like to see, like, a full-blown reunion between them. Just for them to, like, catch up. We obviously got that little bit in Marineford, which I didn't mention. Marineford is, of course, another big one. You know, like, Shanks shows up. They talk about the hat. He throws... the whole Luffy carrying mission. Oh, that was great. I think they deserve S+. I think so. I think so. Captain Kuro. Captain Kuro's flashback is clever. And it's clever even in the sense of... I think Axehand Morgan was mentioned in it. When my first watch through flew over my head a little bit. Buggy needs to get conquerors and Luffy and him split the sky. Can give him the balls again? Yes. We need that. We need that. But yeah, like... I think I am one of relatively few people who thought that the Kuro flashback was actually really clever. I liked it. I thought it was like the first... I think this is... I don't think this is blasphemous to say. I think Captain Kuro's flashback is like the first good villain flashback. Because I don't think we'd basically gotten any up until that point. Morgan isn't mentioned directly in the flashback. You can see a sailor that has the same features. Yes, I'm pretty sure that's what, like, completely flew over my head and people told me later. Yeah, him capturing Kuro is how Morgan became a captain. Yes. And then there's the whole memory wiping thing as well, right? With Django. I missed a lot of that on my first watch through. I was just like, oh, Kuro is just an infamous captain with this whole glasses thing. The glasses thing is still, like, one of my favorite little gotcha moments. That was beautiful. I'm just anticipating that, like, the top rows are probably going to be... I think, for now, I can always move them around later. I think B is fine for him. He's, like, a good starting villain. His story with, Why is the word Klahador in my mind? What's Usop's friend's name? I just keep thinking of Klahador. Yeah, exactly, that's the butler's name. Kaya. Yes, Kaya. His little story with Kaya was also really good. I do think, by the way... I also said this in the whole Netflix stuff. I think Netflix actually improved on his arc drastically. Drastically, too. I'm sorry. I sleep. Usop's and his mom's flashback is one of the most severely disappointing bits in One Piece. And they did the same thing in the live-action version. Which is even more blasphemous. I really hope, whoops, sorry about that. I really hoped that in the live action version, they do something cool with that bit of the story, but they didn't. It was literally the same thing. In the live action version, it almost seemed even more comedic. Because it was like, one moment she's there, and then she's like, oh, you're dead. The way I would probably rewrite it is that would give just a little bit of lead-in for Usop, and then have Usopp's mom's death be the same thing as it was kind of for Zoro with Kuina. It's a sudden moment that sort of makes him realize the weight of his actions, the weight of the world, and sort of to not get lost in his whole pirate shtick for a little bit, you know? I don't know. I really enjoyed the Haunted Mansion vibe in the live action version. I think it was really cool. So yeah, I mean, I really don't have much to say about Usopp's flashback, unfortunately. I really hope that Oda cooks something up with like Elbaf. But do we even have any room for a flashback for Usopp? I think the only growth for Usopp that we can see is in the present day. Yeah, I think so. Like, I think Usop just needs to shine in the present day to make up for the fact that he doesn't really have a flashback. And I also talk about this in terms of flashbacks, right? I feel like the lack of Usopp's flashback is made up with arcs like Water 7. Like, Water 7, a lot of Water 7 is about Robin, but a lot of it is also about Usop. Like, the majority of Water 7 is about Usop. And then Ennie's lobby is more so about Robin. Would have been better if he started saying the pirates are coming after his mom's death as a coping mechanism. I mean, this would be, like, incredibly dark, and I guess this can also respond to the other question. If you could change one aspect of the anime, what would it be? I think, like, this is going to get extremely dark, and it's probably not going to make sense. If, like, his mom was attacked by pirates, or something along those lines, and that's where his whole pirates are coming shtick comes from, I think that would have worked probably better. But then again, why would he sail with Luffy afterwards, you know? I guess you could spin it in the same way that we did with Nami, but then you have the problem of, well, it's the same story. I don't know, like, Usopp is in a weird position when it comes to a flashback. But generally speaking, if I could change one thing about the anime is I would just be a lot more trigger happy with the characters. I feel like a lot of characters would benefit from just being killed off, and that's it. But that's like a whole nother can of worms. Oh my god, I forget this chest guy. What was the chest guy's name? And I also, wait, hold on. Is his story with Buggy? Gaimon, yes. Is his story with Buggy canon? I'm pretty sure it is. Because I'm pretty sure Gaimon pops up again, and it might be... Okay, it is canon, okay. Because I remember there were parts of the story in the anime that I was kind of spooked about with Gaimon. I think Gaimon's story was a little goofy little tale, and I liked it. Gaimon will join the Cross Guild, I've been saying. I think it'd be funny, but what motivation would he have to do that? Because I just keep thinking back to the whole misunderstanding between him and Buggy. That was beautiful. I think Gaimon's story is just fun. It's just fun. Genuinely, I think I would put Gaimon's story above Kuro. The whole getting stuck in the chest part is so dumb, though. Yeah, and I feel like that's like a very good point that you bring up. Like, Usopp's flashback does almost feel like it's a bit emotionally manipulative, you know? Obviously, a lot of the flashbacks are super dark to, like, make you invested in the character emotionally. But with Usop, it's kind of like, well, he needs a flashback, something bad needs to happen to him while his mom is dead. It feels like so thrown in there that it feels unlike Oda. You know, because I feel like with Oda, every time he cooks up a flashback, it's like, goddamn, man's cooking. There's a reason why I always beam about the fact that, like, you see a flashback begin in One Piece, you're done. You're done. GG's. With Usop, though, it's kind of... Sanji's first flashback. This is one that I unfortunately experienced a heavily censored version of. Because I think eating the leg part... Because I watched the anime, and the original anime is censored. Zeff doesn't lose his leg to him eating it. He loses it to the chain, right? Which is kind of goofy, but it is what it is. Now that I know the actual story of how it plays out, and the eating the leg part, and also the phrase of we have all this gold, or all this wealth, or all this treasure, yet we're going to starve. That was like one of the first big moments. Is like strap in. You know, this was early One Piece. I think if you go back to my Baratier video, I say basically this exact phrase. I was like, goddamn, what the hell is Zoro's flashback? I was not expecting this from a freaking comedy manga about pirates. And then Sanji's flashback happens, and I'm like, wait, hold up. Hold up. Wait a minute. I think it's S. I think it's S tier. I think it's easily S tier. Sanji's flashback it's glorious. And also, like, knowing, I'm trying to think of the flashbacks, like, in isolation, but I kind of can't do that. I feel like a lot of the emotional weight that comes with Sanji's flashback is kind of like a direct feedback loop of the present. You know, again, a lot of the flashbacks are about the things we've lost. With Sanji, it's more so a thing that shaped him into who he is, and Zeff is this constant fatherly figure. He never lost Zeff. He gained Zeff. You know? It's a bit different. And I really, really like that. Men should part without tears is beautiful. Bellemere and Nami. And Nojiko. Let's not forget Nojiko. This is one that is hard for me, because I think Bellemere's story is incredibly important, but the conclusion of Bellemere's story happens in the present. Whereas again with Sanji's conclusion doesn't happen in the present. The stuff we see in the present is a separate story that was influenced by his flashback. With Nami, it's one continuous story. So how do I think about it? Because I think, like, the Bellemere being shot scene is forever burned into my memory. And you know what else is burned in my memory? Luffy help me. It's those two moments, but one of them is not in the flashback, so where do I put it? If I put Nami's story as a whole, I think it'd be S tier. But I think just the flashback. But Bellemere is such a badass. The scene of her just knocking Arlong on his ass is one of the most beautiful things of early One Piece. And Nojiko getting the tattoos as well. That is like my biggest problem with the live action version, by the way. The fact that the tattoos aren't a big deal. It is a cultural thing, sure. Because I feel like even in the anime, the tattoos probably flew over a lot of people's heads. That they're taboo in Japan. But goddamn. I'm gonna put it A. And I think I'm even gonna put it top A. I think so. I feel so bad for Luffy's being down here, though. I want Luffy's to be higher. But Luffy's story is so fundamental that, I don't know. Oh, he's gonna be there. He's gonna be there. That's it. That's it. We're moving on. Chopper. He's gonna go there. He's gonna go there. He's gonna go at the very, very top. He's gonna go at the very, very top. Now, Chopper's flashback has a very weird combination. It has everything I like. It has cherry blossoms. It has snow. It has a very sad animal. It has a father figure story. It has the freaking mushroom scene. It has everything. It has all of it. It's the most beautiful little story that has ever been told. Poor little Chopper, shunned from anyone. And freaking Herlock, the mad doctor, takes him in. Oh, it's such a beautiful little story. The mushroom panel, I use it in videos all the time, because that's like, mushroom. With Chopper, it's like, I feel like Chopper and Zoro are two stories that you can really liken to one another, because both of them are like the thing that keeps them going forever. You know, it's like the person you lost and the dream you want to fulfill from the person you lost. It's again slightly different than what we see with, for example, Nami and Bellemere. With Zoro and Chopper, it's like a very directly inherited dream. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it so much. Chopper's flashback, I have nothing else to say about it. It is the best. Vivi. I'm sorry, Vivi. Your flashback, I kinda sleep. I want her to come back into the story. Honestly, like, Vivi's flashback is one of very, very few flashbacks where I was like, tell me the present day story. I'm more interested in what's going on with her now. Vivi's story, the worst thing about it for me is the fact that, like, it's kind of forgettable to me. And I can't even tell you why. Maybe it's because it's so closely linked to what's actually happening in Alabasta as we speak? Maybe? Is better for Koza? Honestly, yeah. Honestly, I feel like it's more of a flashback for him than it is for Vivi. I don't think it's like as throwaway as Usop's is, but it's still pretty weird. very predictable. Yeah, also that. Because, I mean, in a certain way, and that's like the hard thing with flashbacks, right? Technically, any flashback that you ever do has the natural debuff of you know where it ends. This flashback kind of takes the brunt of it. Because not only do we know where it ends, it doesn't even take any twists and turns. Which is very, very sad. Alright. Noland and... I forget it. It was just on the tip of my tongue. His name. Noland Calgara. I was close. I had the C. I put it B because Vivi is still a badass. You know what? You do have a point. We'll see what happens with the later ranks. I might move it up. Noland and Calgara, I think deserves at least high A, if not low S. I think I'm gonna put it S. You know why? Just because it's like a bro story. It's two very different dudes realizing that, you know, we're kind of, it's basically friggin' Roger and Oden, right? Is what I would liken it to. Is basically the older version of Roger and Oden. Two very, very different dudes who realize that both of them are kind of chads, and both of them just kind of want to have fun. It's a very bro story. And then the whole Noland will return and Noland the liar. All of that is, again, very clever. I like when stories are less so emotional, more so clever. I like clever little twists in flashbacks. And I feel like the whole Noland the liar thing is like it's such a sad twist. And it works so well. I love it. Plus it sets up God Usop. Big true. The best and worst part of One Piece of how ridiculously long it is. With flashbacks, with the exception of one we will talk about, with flashbacks in One Piece, I'm honestly kind of like, give me all of it. Because flashbacks are one of those things that we will never see again. With the present day story, I'm kind of like, let's move through it. But with flashbacks, I'm kind of more forgiving on that. So I didn't even think it was too long. I think Skypiea as a whole is too long. I think the flashback wasn't too long. I really, really enjoyed it. Franky. I'm starting to realize just how much I love One Piece flashbacks. Where the hell do I put Franky? Franky's one is like one that is really, really interesting in the context of Water 7 and Iceberg and all that. That's like the stuff I find really interesting. And I also think like Franky's flashback is unfortunately a little bit overshadowed by everything else. Because Franky was the newest crewmate, but we were dealing with a lot of crew drama as is. And another thing, I'm trying to like slowly push myself to being open to moving these down. You know what I think happened? I think with flashbacks like Luffy, like Zoro, even Usop, I think Oda was a little, like he didn't want to linger in the flashbacks too long. Because I think like one thing you'll notice as we get further into the series, these flashbacks become progressively longer, progressively more intricate, progressively more important. They are no longer flashbacks for the sake of outlining a character. They become flashbacks that shape the character and the story we are following. With Zoro, it more so shaped Zoro as a singular person, you know? Whereas with Franky, it's kind of, it colors Water 7, it colors his relationship with Iceberg, it colors a lot of that. So I'm kind of like, I'm tempted to put it there. I'm gonna put it there. Do I really put Franky above Luffy? I'm looking at this tier list, and I'm getting scared. What the? Wow. I'm struggling. I'm really struggling, because Robin is S. Robin is S. Like, there's no two ways about it. I think Robin's flashback, for me personally, will be under Chopper because the setting wasn't as interesting to me. Like, Robin's flashback had everything except the setting. So, you know, it's not that Chopper's flashback is better, it's just that Robin's flashback is missing 1 point. The only thing that I'm kind of like, we'll see how it shapes out, is what happens to Saul D. Goodman. I want to see their reunion. And then I'm going to be like, okay. You know, because Aokiji is a very different character. So if at first I was like, well, why did he let Saul D. Goodman go? Now it's pretty clear that Aokiji, like all those times where Aokiji had a weird relationship with Robin, there was a lot more there, you know? And now we know. It's gonna go there. It's gonna go there. I'm starting to realize that I will have to move things down from S tier. I joked about this when I was doing the One Piece saga originally. You have no idea how long I spent thinking about the goddamn tier list. It literally didn't matter. And I was there sitting for like half an hour like, how am I gonna justify putting this above that? I love this so much, but I also really like this. And speaking of liking things, where the hell do I put Brook's flashback? Brook's flashback is one of the most twisted things Oda has ever written. I watched the anime, so I got the freaking full house of hearing the song. It's like quartets, a trio, a duo, a solo. And I was like, oh no! It's such like a small thing, but goddamn. And that's not even mentioning Laboon, by the way. I haven't even mentioned Laboon. Man, I'm struggling. Man, I'm struggling. I'm struggling big time. I think this is fine. I think this is fine. The reason why I don't put it higher is that I feel like these stories are more important for the present day story than Brook's story right now. In a weird way. Because I feel like we hit the epitome, like, not the epitome, but we hit like the peak of Brook's story with Luffy recruiting him. You know? I don't want to say at peak, because peak implies that it's gotten worse. That's not what I mean. But like in terms of emotional impact, I feel like Luffy recruiting Brook was like the hardest hitting moment for Brook's backstory because he was so lonely. And then Laboon is like another thing in that. But for now, I think Brook is gonna be there. If IGN can give every game 7 out of 10, then you're allowed to put more flashbacks in 2 top rows. No, we're going for a normal distribution, as I always say. Always normal distributions. Always. I always forget, but I try. Post-war. Post-war is at least on par with Luffy's first flashback. And the reason why it is at least on par is because it comes after Ace's death. I genuinely think that the fact that it comes after Luffy is broken and after Ace is already dead and we don't know where Sabo is, it hits so much harder. It goes against everything you would normally expect. Because normally what you would do is you would tell the flashback to build up emotional investments, then kill the character off. Oda said, hold my beer. He freaking killed off Ace and then gives a story about Ace. And now he's doing it again like multiple times. The only thing that I'm not a huge fan of in post-war, I think the Great Terminal stuff went on for a little bit longer, a little bit too long. As like a tiny critique, the Great Terminal stuff, it was just a little bit too dragged out. Maybe that's an anime thing though. It's probably an anime thing. Old Man was filler? Yeah, that I know was filler, but I still think like even the Great Terminal stuff, I think that too was a little bit too much. Maybe merge B and C tier. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Because I'm telling you right now, these three are staying S tier. It's not just because they're my favorite characters. I genuinely feel like with Buggy, you know how I feel about Buggy. We all went on a journey with Buggy. We went on a very long journey with Buggy. Buggy was, and these two, they're just beautiful. We'll leave it there. We'll leave it there. All right, Fisher Tiger. Fisher's story is very heavy. It's not a little whimsical story. It's not, and you know the thing with Fisher's story is like a lot of these stories are very sad, right? And there's a lot of like very human emotion you can find there. You know, like with Chopper and Hero Look, there's the whole paternal instinct, right? Like being shunned from a group, being lonely, all that. There are like very, very human values. But with Fisher's story, like that hatred for the other, it feels so real that I don't want to put it high because like it's incredibly good, but like it's so heavy. So where do I put it? He is an incredible character, and I feel like Fishman Island is one of those arcs that like I immensely respect Fishman Island, but I don't like Fishman Island for like obvious reasons, you know? I think Fishman Island is an incredible arc. It explores themes of like racism, hatred of the other side and all that, better than most series that aim to explore those ideas do. Like Cody's, what did they do to you? Nothing. That's like, Beautiful. Is there a separate one for Otohime, or are you counting it as one flashback? I think we're taking them together. Yeah. Fisher's story, to me, it's so real that, I don't know. I think it's real in the same way that Zoro's flashback is real. I think that is like the closest comparison I would draw to it. Because Zoro's flashback is a tragedy. Fisher's flashback is like a very uncomfortable exploration of people's hatred. I'm gonna put them on par. Sanji in Fishman Island is a walking problem. We don't talk about Sanji in Fishman Island. I think I'm gonna put him there. Maybe if I rewatched it. And Koala. Oh, that whole stuff. Like him taking Koala home. And that's what I mean, like it's heavy. We'll leave it there. The Toy Soldier. Now, with the Toy Soldier, there is something I have to mention. I have to mention the fact that I was watching the anime. I have to. This is the only time where I've put on the dub and put the anime on the second monitor. It's not the first time I put on the dub. I think I watched a couple of dub episodes. But what matters is that I put it on my second monitor because it was taking too damn long. It was so long. It was so long. And if I hear the Toy Soldier one more time... So, unfortunately, I don't think I can separate, like, my bias there. I think the story was really, really good. But I do, like, my brain is just anchored to that negative experience. Unfortunately. I'm gonna put it B. I'm gonna put it B, not just because it goes on for too long. I think also the toy aspect. I can still hear the Toy Soldier yelling Rebecca. Yes. I think the toy aspect, it fits incredibly well. But I'm like, I like to imagine in my mind what it would look like if instead of everyone being turned into toys, they just lost their memories. And you maybe even saw like literal twins, but they didn't recognize each other for whatever reason. I think exploring something like that, it would be even more like psychological horror. With the toys, I feel like I mean, obviously, it is a town full of made-up things, full of toys, all being strung up by strings, you know? It's perfect. I feel like the Toy Soldier aspect also has this, like, one layer of detachment in terms of emotion. Maybe why it hits slightly less hard. I'll put it there. It was a good story, but just, it went on for a bit too long. And it also, like, in many ways, it was kind of retreading Vivi's story as well. It was very similar. It was Pink Vivi. Or Pink Nami, I guess. Doffy shows up as the hero. Yeah, I think that is a very, very good a good part of the flashback, yeah. Whenever you have, like, history being rewritten by these sorts of things, you know, by, like, the Liberator and stuff like that, I always find that really, really cool. It's a theme that I feel like is explored a lot in One Piece as well. We talked about this with Rox as well. The fact that Rox's name might actually be twisted in history. Because the only stuff we've heard of Rox is, like, from the official side. We know nothing of Rox. So that, like, might be another cool case of... And I mean, Luffy's name is also twisted in history. Luffy, for a lot of people, is a horrible pirate. You know? So yeah, I think that is really, really neat. Things like pictures or statues would circumvent the effects. Oh yeah, of course. I'm not trying to, like, rewrite the story. I'm just throwing out ideas. There would be a lot of issues with that as well. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, the dolls, I feel like, it just deattaches you from, like, the person. You know? Senor Pink. The flashback that literally came out of nowhere. What the hell is Senor Pink's flashback? Why does it even exist? Can someone explain to me, why does Senor Pink exist? And why did Oda cook so hard? Senor Pink's flashback, it's not even, like, mind-blowing or anything. It's just that it was so unexpected. And, like, I feel like it's, like, the perfect counterweight to a lot of the Doffy story. It's going to at least be top B. At least. At least. Might creep up to B. I don't want to put it above these because I don't feel like it has the lasting impact, you know? Senor Pink's flashback was just like, what is this? It came out of the blue, it was really, really good, and that's like it. I guess it does influence Franky in a lot of ways, right? Like, Franky referenced him even in Egghead. We talked about what happened to Senor Pink literally in Egghead very recently. I guess it does have, like, the lasting power, but compared to everyone else, I don't know if I can bring myself to move it up. Since he has backstories for basically every character, and he liked it so much that he told him to include it in the manga. I wouldn't be surprised if it is something like that, yeah. If he has like a, like the so-called show Bible, right? Where he writes all the stories for himself. And then he was like, wait, this is so cool, put it in. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what it is. I'm gonna put it there. I can imagine for a lot of people it's gonna be higher. But I try to look at it from like the lasting value as well. Like things like, again, like the Buggy stuff. It is completely recontextualized like 1,000 plus chapters of the story. So, you know. Now we move on to Law, Corra, and Doffy. I don't know what this picture is, by the way. I don't know why. You probably can't see it that well, but it's a very, very weird looking picture of Doffy caring for Kid Law while Corra is in the smoking area. I don't know what this picture is supposed to be. Okay. Corra's story is another one that's like, oh. And I think we include like Doflamingo in there as well, right? I feel like Corra, Law, Doflamingo, they're so closely intertwined that I kind of take them together. That was incredible. The only thing, in hindsight, that is, can we talk about hockey real quick? What happened to Doflamingo's observation and why didn't he sense Law in the chest? What happened with that? That aside though, the fact that like Korra's fruit, I think like the simple, I've said this a million times in every single series I've ever done. Whenever a series cuts to dead silence, that is like the peak of the peak of the peak in terms of hitting emotional highs. And the fact that Korra's devil fruit is that, and he can remove like noise, he can hide his own suffering, it is glorious. And also the fact that like everything Korra says was double speak to Law, oh, it's beautiful. And then, I mean, them going across the entire world looking for the cure. For a child he barely even knows. Yes, and oh... We're gonna put it as there. We're gonna put it as there. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Oh, you know what I just realized? This happened in Dressrosa as well. That's why because I only have so much brain space, right? Maybe the reason why I put the toy soldier this low is because Corra just annihilated the toy soldier story. It's probably that. It is what it is. I don't think I'm gonna put it above. Because I think for Sanji, the food angle being so important, I feel like that slightly edges it out. Because like the food angle for Sanji is always important. It is always referenced. It is a core part of his character. With Law, like Corra is very important. But I feel like we also just don't, like Law doesn't speak that much, you know? So a lot of the stuff he thinks about probably isn't entirely vocalized. Because he's still searching for the meaning of the D. Put it there. Put it there. Big Mom. I think it's sweet. The thing with the Big Mom flashback is I get what it's trying to do. I do. The fact that like she is left alone, she's like a child, you know, and no one cares for her. And I mean she is a literal child, you know. It's horrible. But the things that she does later, and like again, you can't blame a child, you know, you can't. You can't blame her for what happened. You can't. But it doesn't change any of my feelings toward the flashback and what happens in the flashback. Like, the fact that she eats her friends, it's like, it's sad, but I know who you are in the present day. Her flashback is a very weird one. Because, like, I want to feel bad, but I don't. And yeah, you also bring up a good point that it is kind of just lore. Since some of them might be God Knights? Well, whatever the case. She has somehow attained Mother's Devil Fruit. And you know, like, yeah, like, again, the whole Mother stuff, trying to, like, sell her and stuff. I mean, again, I want to feel bad for her, but I just can't. I just can't. It was weird. Katakuri. I need to sneeze. I need to sneeze really, really badly. It's not happening, I think. Katakuri. I feel like Katakuri, I feel like he was more interesting in the present day. Because I feel like that angle of him protecting his siblings was already very well shown in the present day. The insecurities around, like, his face and everything, and caring for his siblings and everything, I feel like that was perfectly fine in the present day. So the flashback's kind of like, I don't know. I don't think it's particularly memorable. I might honestly put it in a nice sleep. Because Katakuri was such an incredible bad guy. Well, I mean, he's not even a bad guy. He's an adversary, you know? Like, Katakuri, in broad strokes, I wouldn't even say he's like a villain. But yeah, like, he was so good in the present day that, like, the flashback to me is kind of like complimentary. Why he becomes a perfect man? Yeah. But again, maybe it is literally just a case of his present day story being so complete and so good that I was kind of like, well, okay, cool. I'm gonna put it there. Alright, the Fox. Now, the Fox and Kappa is another story that came out of the blue. I didn't expect it. Well, I mean, I kind of did, but I didn't expect it to be with something like this. I expected this to happen with Zoro. I expected this kind of story to be 100% focused on Zoro, but it wasn't. And the Guardian Deity stuff, I thought it was really cool. Also, the animation in these episodes was beautiful. The whole collecting the swords and the whole graveyard of swords is badass. There's a reason why it is now in every single piece of fiction ever. I'm not sure if it originated in Berserk. Probably didn't, because it feels like a very generic thing to do, like stab a sword in the ground. Anyway, it's a really cool little detail. This one for me, it's definitely at least top B. You know what? It might even be there. Because I feel like it was such a local little tale. In the grand scheme of things, I guess it didn't really change that much. But it was such a cool little adventure with Kappa. And I loved Kappa. Like, I loved Kappa. Kappa was great. Maybe it's just because I was like, hey, he has an animal companion. I'm starting to realize that I'm very biased towards animal companion stories. Any story that has an animal companion, sign me up. Like, look at this little dude. Hold on. Do you see him up there? I don't think you do. There's an animal companion right up there. Animal companions, best things. Every single story should have an animal companion. Put it there. Kawamatsu, I think that's his name. I keep calling him Kappa, yeah. Is in my top 3 scabbers, partially because of the flashback. For me, he's the best one. For me, he's my favorite one. I like his personality. I like his little story with, Hiyori, her name was? I think it was Hiyori. The flashback is excellent. Everything about him was great. I love his fighting style. I love his like, character design. I really liked him. He was cool. I'm going to do that. And I think I'm going to do this. So, I'm not going to put both the Oden one and the Roger one, because we're going to do them together. I just don't want to clutter this. Right? So we're going to do just Roger. Roger is 100% S tier. We just need to decide where. The thing with Roger's flashback, it is a flashback that almost no other story could ever do, because it is simply not that long. The thing with Roger's flashback, it was such an incredible payoff that, like, it's indescribable. I genuinely feel like the moment we see Roger land on Laugh Tale, it is one of those feelings that you could never describe to someone. Like, straight up. It's one of those moments where you have to experience it to truly know how it feels. There are very few of these moments in media. Very few. It's when a series captures that it becomes special. You know what? I'm genuinely, Roger's flashback might be my favorite one. It feels like such a payoff. Roger's just a part of Oden's. True. I feel like if we talk about overshadowing stories, I do genuinely, because like Oden's story was really good. Oden's story was incredible, like with the whole hard-boiled stuff and all that, right? Like Oden was an incredibly important character. But unfortunately, we are reading One Piece. And you know there's a man who starts One Piece by the name of Goldie Roger. It might be my favorite flashback just because of the payoff. I think if you put them like side by side, in terms of like the characters, 100% I would still pick Chopper and Robin. 100%. But because of where it exists and what it means for the bigger story, I think Roger's flashback is the greatest thing Oda's ever written. And I genuinely think it might still be the case right up until the very end. Roger's flashback is something else. A lot of people say that the Void Century flashback might beat it. I would not be so sure. I wouldn't. Because the Void Century, while it, like the thing with the Roger flashback is that nothing will ever be able to replicate it because it's Roger. And we've been following the mystery of Roger for some people 20 years. Even if we get a Void Century flashback, no matter how good it is, it's not going to have those decades worth of investments. I feel like just because it's Roger, I don't think it's gonna be beaten. I don't. Bonus points for them singing Bink Sasake? Yes. And also the fact that Oden's and Roger's story, it's another one of those kind of like I said this exact thing before. It's the same thing as with I already forgot his name, Carl something and Noland, right? It's like the biggest bro adventure ever, but then they just go their separate ways. It's not like we became best friends, we sailed together forever. No. Oden went back to doing his own stuff, and Roger completed his journey. I feel like that's like another thing. It's like that slight touch of sadness because they separate in the same flashback. It's masterful. It's so good. Roger and Oden's story is beautiful. I would be very curious to ask Oda whether Oden is based off of Noland or something along those lines. To me, it genuinely feels like that. It feels like the Noland and Carl something flashback is kind of like the test run for Roger and Oden. Sanji's second flashback. The thing with Sanji's second flashback is kind of just suffering.mp4. And I feel like his true story of Whole Cake shines in the present day. I feel like the flashback is kind of... because it shapes so much. It does. It shapes like his, like the fact that his mother was the only person who cared for him, the whole sibling stuff, and the fact that he kind of, like his sister is again the only one that cares for him. The fact that his father is literally a trash can of a man. The freaking scene of Sanji with the helmet. The scene of Sanji with a little rat boy, you know? And the scene of Sanji cooking his mom a meal. And like it's horrible, but she eats it and smiles. The fact that he runs through the freaking rain with that bit of food. The whole never cook again stuff. It's so pivotal for who Sanji is. But goddamn does it peak in the present day. It's kind of like Nami, I guess. It's the same thing I said with Nami, right? The fact that like the death of Bellemere is what set Nami on this path, but like the Luffy help me happens in the present day. With Sanji, I feel like it's the same thing. Like Luffy versus Sanji and eventually reuniting. It's like we had to see all of that in order to see the reunion. This might be blasphemous. I might put it above Korra. The only thing I have one major problem with the Sanji flashback. And this was one of the things, spoilers, the original Whole Cake video had a whole section about how this feels like Zuko returns to the Fire Nation. There was like a whole thing that I likened to Zuko trying to make friends with Azula again, you know, because they're now siblings and they're sort of on equal footing, even though they're clearly not. I had like a whole thing scribbled out about how Sanji is actually Zuko. I cut all that out. What I was going to say, the one major problem I have with this is the fact that kind of like Zuko in his return to the Fire Nation, he is kind of broken and afraid, you know? He tells himself that I am now home, and you know that, like, I'm fine with this, we're gonna go through with it. Everything is clearly not fine, but he doesn't fight back. He never does, up until the very, very end. And the reason why I bring it up is because there is a scene of Sanji catching the plate. Like, they throw the plate at, like, the server lady, and Sanji catches the plate. There is one humongous flaw in that scene. Sanji didn't tell them to eat the food off of the ground. He had to do that, but he didn't. He didn't. He had to do that. That's the present day. Why am I even talking about it? That has nothing to do with the flashback. But yeah, like, I would liken this Sanji's story to basically Zuko and Azula. And I love Zuko and Azula's story so much that naturally, it has to be high. It just has to. And you know what? No. No, we're not. He's gonna be there. He's gonna be there. Okay, so like I said, Oden we're not touching. Oden's up there with Roger. Same thing. Kuma. Now, very important notes. Very important notes. Just like I am biased with the freaking toy soldier because I am anchored to a very bad experience, I am very biased with Kuma because of that beautiful thing called recency bias. To be fair, like my favorite flashback is one of my favorite flashbacks is Chopper, which is very old. So I feel like I'm pretty good about recency bias. I think I'm gonna swap these out, by the way. I think I'm gonna put that on. No, I'm not. Kuma's story. In terms of emotional highs, I do think Kuma's story hits harder for me than, let me put it this way. I feel like with Brook's flashback, I'm talking about Brook's flashback now, right? So this is going to be a comparison to Brook's flashback. So with Brook's flashback, there is a very, very well written story moments of that quartet, trio, duo, solo, right? It's like a beautifully written moment in the story. And that is fine, but it's not like a thing you could imagine in the real world, you know? It's again about that attachment to something we know, something we understand. With Kuma's story, though, each and every one of those emotional blows is just about as anchored to the real world as you could have. It's a parent hiding their pain from their kid. It is a kid hoping to see their parent again. And it is the parent literally tearing themselves apart for the kid. Everything about that is as human as you can get. And sure, it's like dressed up in like all this lore, all this becoming a cyborg, all this blue sapphire disease, all this devil stuff, you know? But fundamentally, it is a incredibly human story. Where Brook's story, while still rooted in like loneliness and losing people around you, it is a bit too story, you know? It's a very weird way to describe it, but you know. So I think Kuma's story might deserve to be above Brook's. Kuma's so much lore and so much character. Yes. Kuma's story has the same exact vibes that... You might notice this, by the way. I am very biased towards stories that involve, like, some sort of, companionship, some sort of protection, something like that. I just gravitate toward those sorts of stories. I don't know why. Hero Look, caring for Chopper, Robin's mom. Buggy is the exception. And then Kuma, I mean, all of those are, like, paternal, stories, right? So that's like something I guess I'm biased towards, because I'm thinking about the stories that are really, really good, and I'm just like, The Last of Us, you know? It's a dude caring for a surrogate daughter. The Walking Dead, it's a Rick caring for his son. The Road, it's a dude caring for his son. I feel like it's a very common trope, but it works really, really well. And Kuma's story is like the epitome of that. It hits the same vibes. As much as I love Chopper, I'm just like... The thing with Kuma's story, I just ranted for like 10 minutes about why Roger's story is the best thing. Kuma's story is the same thing. Kuma's story is completely recontextualized. Kuma's story does not exist in a vacuum. Kuma's story is like a whole thing that grows and changes. I'm struggling. Because I'm also, I don't want to push it like to the very, very top, because I'm like recency bias. You know, like, if I rewatch Chopper's story right now, I'd be a wreck. You know, and ditto for Ramen. I don't want to move Kuma's story to the top. I think I'm gonna leave it there. Because in a weird way, I think this is something like again, Oda really needs to, you really need to, like, give Oda props. Despite all the fantasy around Kuma's story, fundamentally, it is just a father and a daughter. You know? Like, fundamentally, this is Joel, and Bonnie is Ellie. Fundamentally, it is just a parent story. And everything around that can disappear. And it would still be just as strong. It doesn't need to lean on anything. When his dad goes, maybe she is better off dead regarding Kuma's mom, almost maybe, yeah, I was about to say, because I was so anchored in on Bonnie's story that I was like, but wait, Kuma's story goes further back, there's still God Valley. Switch Shanks and Robin? No, I'm not. Shanks is completely irrelevant in this story. The relevant part of this is Buggy. Let me explain something. Let me explain why I'm struggling. I'm gonna explain, right? Let's look at Kuma's story. Kuma's story is a story that cannot exist without everything. And I mean everything that comes after, beforehand, right? All the way back to Thriller Bark, that's where Kuma's story begins. It's the same thing as Roger. Roger's story begins in episode 1, and everything changes. Like, we follow his story tangentially all the way through. Kuma's story has that paternal story that Hero Look has with Chopper, right? It's a fundamental story of wanting to care for this little thing. Kuma's story is also about finding a purpose to literally live. To literally just live. And Kuma's story is completely recontextualized, just like Buggy's. Where the hell do I put Kuma's story if he hits all the notes from the top 4 stories for me? Kuma's story is all of them. Kuma's story is literally all of these things. You know what? I know we're gonna talk about the final tier list, but listen, we are all right here. We're gonna agree. We are gonna agree conceptually. Kuma's story, I think I would move it to the top now. I think I would. Maybe not to the top. Maybe I would still put Roger at the top. But the point I'm making is conceptually, I am open to moving Kuma even higher. But right now, I want to sleep on it. I want to sleep on it. I want to see where Bonnie's story goes. I want to see where Kuma's story goes. I want to see it follow through. Because when I think about Robin's story and I think about I Want to Live, moments like that through line is beautiful. Is beautiful. But I've convinced myself that Kuma's story does hit every single requirement for a peak One Piece flashback. And I just said why. It is all of these things. And again, Oden's flashback is just Roger's flashback. We're putting them together, so that doesn't matter. I'm just gonna leave it off the tier list for the sake of I can't. Well, it's up there now. Well, it's up there. I can't remove it. I can't get rid of it. Well, it's up there now. So now what we need to do is we're gonna have to make it a normal distribution. Look, okay, we're close enough. We're close enough to a normal distribution. We're close enough to a normal distribution. No, you know what? You know what? I'm sorry, Brook, but compared to these boys, I think I'm fine with doing this. Why did I do that? I'm thinking about these because I'm thinking the importance of Zeff and the importance of like that Zuko Azula vibe. That's the thing I keep getting stuck on. Because Sanji's flashbacks are both excellent. I think Laws gets dragged down by combining it with Doffy's. Yes, I agree with you 100%. I think Law's story is like the most important thing in this. I really like just the bro story of them though. You know what? We can move Brook and S tier because these are together. Like this is just one, right? Like these shouldn't be both here. They're together. I feel so freaking bad for having Zoro in B. Why is Fisher in B? Fisher should be higher. Why is Fisher so low? Fisher needs to be higher, but I don't know where to put it. I'm exhausted. Fisher's story is too real for One Piece. Zoro should be in C. No, go and watch the video by the world-renowned YouTuber called Koroto's Mystery Shack. He made a video on Zoro a couple weeks ago. I changed the name of it because it was doing kind of bad. I changed the name of it to like Zoro's Humanity and something, Burden of something. People weren't clicking the name, so I changed the name. Zoro's story is everything to Zoro, and that's why it should be important. Okay, you know what? Before I actually pop a blood vessel, we're gonna leave it there. I already disagree with myself, so if you're watching this, if you're watching like a video version of this, tell me how much you hate me, and how much Kuma should be the best, how much Zoro should be in I Sleep, how much Chouchou shouldn't even be on here. Tell me all the things. Tell me all the things. This was a struggle and a half. I think generally though this is fine. Yeah, that's it. That's a tier list.